Everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We're only after witnessing Armagh trounce Antrim in the athletic grounds to qualify for the quarterfinals of the Ulster Championship. I'm delighted to be joined by former Tyrone star Kyle Coney. And Kyle, you were on commentary duty there. It was one-sided, and possibly for a Division 1 team taking on a Division 3 team, it's probably what was expected.
Yeah, I suppose that's what's expected whenever you look at the divisions in the golf and class. Obviously a Division 1 team against a Division 3 team, but I was bitterly disappointed in Antrim. I thought Andy McEntee would have brought a physicality to it. I thought he would have had a better game plan in terms of attack. I said a number of times on the radio, it looked as if it was very individualised. Some of their shot selection was really, really poor. Although Ethan Rafferty didn't look totally comfortable with the way the ball was coming in, he was coming to claim the ball. But I was just that wee bit disappointed now in Antrim in the performance they put up. They played Armagh here a few years ago under Enda McGinley. They just run out of steam that day. But for 40-45 minutes, they give Armagh all they wanted. And I had them just tactically that wee bit better set up going forward. And then when you look at the three subs that Andy McEntee made, he replaced the three boys that he did start. And that was, to me, holding his hand up, admitting that he got it wrong.
And I suppose bringing Pat Chivers in, it gave a bit of physicality in that forward line, and Rory McCann already up there. You mentioned them long balls in. They did cause Armagh trouble. I know Mickey Graham and Ryan McManaman were both here. If there was one thing to pick out from that, they're probably thinking that maybe they could get Armagh full back line.
Yeah, that could be an option that they'll have looked at. Paddy Lynch is a big man for Cavan. He'll be causing havoc around that area of the pitch. But yeah, I did notice that for Ethan Rafferty playing out the field and playing a lot of his football in the middle third, where the keepers are kicking the balls, I found that he was struggling a wee bit. Maybe I don't know if it was the flight of the ball or was it thinking that he had to come for every one of them. But there was a couple of times the ball bounced out favourably for Armagh. It didn't go into the net, but started the second half. He come for one as well, and it bounced off his chest into the back of an Armagh or Antrim player and went wide. So you would imagine, if Mickey Graham and Ryan McManaman go back to analyse that, that'll be something that they'll have taken away from it. But on the other hand, I was very impressed with his kickouts today. I'd watched him in the warm up, and he was doing a lot of maybe about 65, maybe 55, 60 metre kickouts, and with no height drilling them, and I was really, really impressed with that. And look, when you have a player like that who's so comfortable at taking the ball out the pitch, it gives you some asset for an overlap all the time. And Antrim today, I would say he had more touches than some of the Antrim players, so it gives them a great platform going forward.
It was notable against Tyrone. I think it was Brian Kennedy tracked Ethan Rafferty every time he come up the field. There was a couple of times today Antrim, they just put a man on him every time he come up. That's going to be a tactic that Cavan and any other team playing Armagh are going to use in the future, you'd imagine.
You have to. There's no the days of letting a player. It's different if that player that can't is coming out the field and he's coming solo on the ball. You can see a clear goalie a mile away, but a man who can play out field like that and can ping balls in. Ethan's got a wand of a left foot, so when he comes so far, I would imagine teams will have a tactic. If he comes beyond his 45, they'll have a player designated to pick him up, and you have to do that because that automatically creates an overlap. Because he's not afraid to go the whole way. There was times today that he found himself, nearly on the opposition 20, so he's comfortable going. So you imagine anybody that's Cavan going to play the next day, somebody will be designated as soon as he goes to a certain distance. You have to pick him up.
I don't know, he got a point from a free. I think he was mad looking a point from play in that second half as well. But talking about points from play and being a forward, Kyle, I suppose Conor Herbert would have caught your eye there today. I know he picked up the BBC Man of the Match award. 8 points, 4 from play, 3 frees and a mark. He was excellent today, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Conor the last league game out against Tyrone. He probably took up the mantle of the free kicks after Rain missed out that day, and then today again. But one thing that a forward loves and an inside forward loves is good delivery of kick passing inside. And I know Armagh had maybe went away from it a wee bit throughout their league campaign of getting that ball in quick and early, but they backed themselves today. They went on the front foot, and the likes of Rory Grugan, we talked about Ethan Rafferty, Jamar Hall. You have those type of boys putting the ball in, and Conor has got speed to get out in front. They still need finishing, and he can do it off right and left. And particularly there was one near the end, an early ball in. He sold a nice dummy and knocked it over. So it'll do his confidence the world of good. And do you know what? maybe it'll bring him to the fore that wee bit more with Rian O'Neill out of the picture for maybe whenever Rian comes back, it'll give them another option of two scores. You know what I mean? Because maybe Armagh have been struggling that wee bit outside of Rian O'Neill from play. So you'd be impressed with him. And one player I've been really impressed with today was Shane McPartland. 4 points I think he got from middle of the field in his championship debut. He'd have pulled the handy, I'm sure, if you had said that before the match started.
He was really impressive, and probably what makes it more impressive, he got a few minutes against Tyrone in the league the last day, and that was all he played in the league. To come in here and, okay, Armagh had it all their own way, but to come in, kick 4 points, and 4 really good points as well, it was outstanding from young McParland, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, look, when you make your championship debut, I know that Antrim mightn't have posed a huge threat, but he found what he was doing was getting himself into the right positions. He wasn't hanging back at the middle of the field being that defensive midfielder. He was getting up, he was getting involved in attacks. He won a few free kicks for Conor Turbot to pop over as well. So you have to be really impressed with that performance. There's not more he could have done today. Do you know what I mean? So he'll have a tougher day out the next day against Cavan, but it'll do his confidence the world of good with a performance like that.
And Kyle, just before I let you go, Armagh through to the next round now. There's a lot of football to be played in the next couple of weeks. Who do you feel will go on and win the Ulster Championship? Do you feel Armagh have a really good chance, or who do you see coming through?
Look, we can name off 5 or 6 teams that are going to fancy their championships or chances in the Ulster Championship. You're going to have Armagh, you're going to have Derry, Monaghan, and obviously Tyrone, who are playing their trade all in Division 1. Derry coming up, Armagh being relegated, but they'll all fancy their chances in that regard. I do believe Tyrone are in a good place. I said it previously there that they have, if anyone has been watching the games closely, they've made a shift in tactics in the last 2 league games. They've dropped a few more men back to protect that full back line. If they can find the balance between getting men back and keeping a couple of players up the pitch, I think that they're on till a good way. So I do think Tyrone might be fueling their hurt a wee bit and pinning themselves back against the wall, because that's whenever Tyrone play their best football. So I do think Tyrone might come out this year on top of the Ulster Championship.
Possible Tyrone Armagh Ulster final, the way the draw is made too, so maybe that'll be something to look forward to in the future as well.
Yeah, and look, Armagh haven't had a hugely impressive record in the Ulster Championship, and I know that maybe teams are saying our focus. I know Kieran McKeever said his focus was maybe on the round of 16 as such, but I would imagine that's a line that they're throwing out there, because Ulster Championship among Ulster teams means a huge lot. I know it mightn't be the same in other provincial championships, but Armagh will be gunning for an Ulster Championship. You can be sure of that. And if they're on the same side of the draw as Tyrone, it'll be a tasty Ulster final.
Hopefully it all comes out that way. Kyle, thanks very much for coming on.
No bother at all.
So I'm joined by Conleith Gilligan. Conleith, we're after witnessing Armagh getting a really comprehensive win over Antrim in the Ulster Championship. 20 points without Rian O'Neill on Andrew Murnan. Kieran McGeeney would be delighted with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much lose-lose for Armagh going into this today. They win by 10 or 12 points, and they were playing a lower division team. They only won 1 or 2, and it's a disaster. So, look, I think they got out of it well. No injuries. They move on towards Cavan, and I think, well, it wasn't brilliant overall. They were very wasteful in front of goal. They probably coughed up more chances than they should have. But overall, no injuries. I think Kieran McGeeney will be delighted going into Cavan, because he didn't really have to show his hand. And with Murnan possibly coming back and Rian O'Neill, they're starting to get real options again.
And I just spoke to Kyle Coney, and the 2 players he picked out were obviously Conor Turbot and Shane McParland. Were they, for you, Armagh's 2 best players, and who else stood up for Armagh?
Yeah, no, look, I think Armagh were better all over. 5 of their 6 forwards scored. I think maybe only Duffy didn't get a score, and he cut out a goal and a point in the first 5 minutes. So, look, I think there's loads of positives. I think Ben Creeley getting game time, and especially Kieran Higgins coming back on off the bench, and that gives them real options in terms of physicality. So, look, McParland, it was hard to know him and Creeley hadn't played any league games. It probably was a gamble, but look, it paid off. They were so dominant, and I suppose here today, the physicality of Armagh versus Antrim was there to be seen. Cavan will be a wee bit further down the line. They'll be a wee bit better conditioned, and they'll pose different questions. And they have been sitting back watching this, and off the back of a league win, Cavan will be really looking forward to that one, I would imagine.
And Calvin, I suppose, Conleith, they've had a long time to prepare for it as well. They've had more than just the 2 weeks. I'm sure they were expecting Armagh to come through this. So already been qualified with the 2 rounds left in the league, the league final. They've had now 2 weeks now. They'll be well prepared for Armagh, you'd imagine.
Oh, they will. Like, I would imagine it's been a perfect run-in for them because, as you say, they'd qualified for the league through other results. So they took their foot of the gas for the Fermanagh game. Then they beat them in the league final, and they've now watched here today, and they've got another week's training under their belt. Any injuries they have, they'll clear up. Alex McVitie was only coming back in that league final after a hamstring injury, so they'll be in a wee bit of a better position too. And I think that could be one of the games of the championship because it'll be 2 teams obviously slugging it out. Especially with Division 2, both teams will be there next year as well.
And just, I'd started asking you about the 20 points, but again, no goals, Conleith. And I think I spoke to you in Omagh about Armagh's lack of goals throughout the league. They only got 2, and there's no such thing as bad goals, but they weren't great goals. A couple of chances today, and just, there was the square ball with Rory Gilligan, you mentioned Duffy's, just not getting them goal chances, not getting the goals, and that's probably a concern for Armagh.
Yeah, look, it would be. They did get in a couple of times, but up to Gilligan got in once. Stephen Campbell came and nearly got in once. So they're nearly there. It's nearly clicking, and I think that's maybe a good sign after the first round. If you show everything here today, then teams are able to come up with the antidote for that. They've showed they're nearly there. They're hard running off the ball. They were just so dominant. I think it will come for them. Will it be Calvin? Who knows? But both of them teams will be looking at a possibility of an Ulster final. And that's a really, really big prize for either team.
I think something Armagh fans will be really happy about was the quick start. It was putting doubts in Antrim's head straight away. I think Armagh went 5 or 6 points up straight away and put themselves in the driving seat. That was really important for Armagh. Just don't give Antrim any hope as if they had of. Antrim could have built on that and made it a tighter game, and Armagh didn't want that.
No, they could have. Armagh lost the toss. Antrim opted to play with the breeze. So any advantage they were getting, they'd got it there. Then they got a free right from the throw-in. They get down the field, they get turned over, and from the first turnover, Armagh got a score. And that really was a signal of intent. The next ball they got in midfield, it was turned over again. So the first 2 scores were from turnovers, where physically Armagh dominated, so they didn't really give them much breathing space. The game could have been out of sight. Duffy kicked a bad wide, then he had the goal chance. Had that had happened, that was going to be 7 or 8-0 at that stage, whereas it was sort of 3-0, 4-0, and then it went to 5-1, and it just meant that Antrim still had a wee bit of a glimmer of hope. Armagh really didn't pull away, but I think going into the game, you probably didn't want to win by too much because you learn more from the game being a wee bit tighter.
And just for the remainder of the championship, Conleith, how much of a chance do you give this Armagh team to go on and win the Ulster Championship? Because I suppose, looking at the draw, they're on the quote-unquote easier side of the draw. I don't think Calvin will be taking that too lightly, but do you think Armagh can go on and win this Ulster Championship based on what you've seen today?
When I spoke to you the last day, obviously things were at a low ebb because Armagh had been relegated, and I felt at that stage it wasn't just as bad as that. I thought there was probably more scope in Armagh. I still think there's more scope in Armagh. I thought last year, they're in a really good shout to win Ulster. I think they're in a really good shout again this year winning Ulster. But on paper is very different from on the pitch, and they have to now deliver that type of performance, and they are capable of it. They have the players to do it. They have the forwards to do it. Defensively, they're getting very, very sound. So from that point of view, I think they'll be looking at Ulster with very real possibilities.
Good stuff, Conor. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you.
So I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Murphy. Michael, what was it like watching Armagh instead of being stuck in the middle of playing them? It was an easy win for Armagh coming here, and it was probably one that we expected that Armagh would win easily.
Listen, I think everybody coming here today, I think the script was writ really. They expected Armagh to win comfortably. Antrim maybe they caused a bit of a fright, especially when we've seen the lineups and maybe a couple of the Armagh more dominant names out. But I think Kieran McGuinness and all the boys and the team themselves, after maybe the last 2 league outings where games didn't go maybe as they would have liked or as they would have planned, they would have been delighted to get that running around game under the belt there today. Great for the likes of Conor Turbot, just to see him out there today and standing up. I think it's another 70 minutes to see him. He looked really, really comfortable out there. He looks a player that can play at this stage and just is really, really comfortable at this stage. So I think with them, without the likes of Rian O'Neill and Andrew Murnan around, who are their
suppose, two cheap marksmen throughout the league. I think it was good for them Armagh set of forwards to get out there today and just try and get their eye in and get their shooting in, but that's really what it was, trying to look at Antrim and what they brought to it. They brought a bit of huff and puff to it, but they didn't really bring much method to the game at all.
And I suppose, Michael, having been relegated, Armagh, they needed to come out here and maybe prove a point for themselves more so than anything else, and it'll be a bit of a morale booster now, kicking 20 points without Rian O'Neill and Andrew Murnan.
Yeah, I think that's it, and it's getting out there. I always knew yourself from playing games, that after a defeat you really want to just get back in the grass again, and they're back in the grass within a couple of weeks, and getting back out there. So they would have been delighted to get out here in front of their home ground on a patch that they know, and to start off the way they started to. If any shock was going to be on the cards here today, you were going to see it maybe within the first 10-15 minutes, within the first half of that first half. Armagh raced into a commanding lead 6-1, I think, at one stage there, and just looked comfortable, knew what they were about, knew what they were doing. They were able to run the changes, run the bench in the second half, and as I say, it's just a good opportunity for them. After that game there today, that league performances now are put to bed, and they're looking solely ahead now to Cavan in a couple of weeks' time.
I suppose the goal would have been a concern for Armagh, the fact that Conor Stewart just seemed to race through the heart of the defence and didn't. I think it was Aaron McKay sort of knew if he went to him, he was leaving his man free, and it was a top-in goal. But would that have been a concern for Armagh, that he got through so easily, or was the game sort of gone by that stage and it's okay to switch off?
Well, no, listen, it was the start of the second half. We were speaking at half time. We felt that, Antrim were going to need goals. And, they brought a bit more bite and a bit more dynamism in the second half to the game. But, it was an attack that went through. It was over the top. Conor Stewart, and he took the finish really, really well. But they had a goal chance, or kind of right after that, a Rory McCann, a high ball to the square, kind of came off Rory McCann, and if that had went in, maybe things would have changed. But it was really, really hard to see Antrim really coming back into it. From their Armagh perspective, as I say, again, they took some really, really good scores in that second half. Midfielder Partland, some unbelievable scores there in that second half. Four for him, and as I say, Conor Turbot, and they're kicking the scores that he did was really good. A couple of occasions might have felt that there was goal chances on, and a bit more ruthless streak in them you would have liked to have seen, especially for a team that's only scored 2 goals in the National League so far. You would have liked to have seen, go for the juggler and go for the goal. But listen, they ticked the box, they've done the job, they're on the Cavan, and they'll be looking forward to that.
And just as a forward, Michael, how frustrating or annoying is that Armagh aren't hitting the net? Like, as you mentioned, they got 2 in the league, and one of them came from Ethan Rafferty. So the Armagh forward line, would they be frustrated with themselves that they can't get them goals over the line?
Listen, I think they will. I don't think it's something they begin into each game thinking about. At the end of the day, they kicked 20 points there the day, a number of, maybe wides and balls that drop short alongside that too. So I don't think they'll be dwelling on it too much when they present themselves. There was a couple of openings there, even in the first half, when they were chipping some nice points. There was a couple of chances you felt that, if they had buried their head down and went and took their man on and gone for the juggler, they might have got in there. But listen, they were happy to take their points. So listen, next day out against Cavan's another opportunity for them. But I don't think they'll be too worried about not getting goals. If they're keep clipping the points the way they're clipping them, when the goal chance is open, they will take that opportunity. That opportunity, and the ball was squared to Rory Gilligan. I can't remember who was coming in along the end line that time. You would have definitely said a ruthless streak there. Your man would have absolutely hammered the ball rather than flicking it across to Gilligan, who was in the square. But listen, that's it. They won't dwell on it. They'll get back in the training ground, kicking 20 points, no matter what the opposition, still good kicking. And, bigger day out against Cavan. I think Cavan's waiting there. They've been waiting, I think, all year. They realise that this is their opportunity to get into the, basically to get into the Sam Maguire stages, so that's what's going to be riding on this game for from a Cavan point of view,
And just before I let you go, Michael, if you had to call it at the minute, who would you see coming through that game?
I think it's going to be a humdinger. I've seen Cavan yet. They've been coming from Division 3. I've watched them once or twice this year in the league, and they look good. They look to be motoring quite well. They have pace in their forward line, which Cavan used to be always known as quite a big team, but they have really, really strong pace there in their forward line. And you never underestimate a team. They've been coming through, I suppose, Division 3. They've cruised through it relatively easy. Maybe that one defeat against Antrim. They've been looking at this game from well down the track. They knew they were going to be playing Armagh. They knew it's likely in Breffni Park. So it's a really, really big one for both sets of teams. And but you would have to say that Armagh still have room and improvement here today. And a lot of the rides, getting Rain O'Neill back, Antrim are two massive additions onto them too. So it's going to be a humdinger. You would have to say Armagh are still favourites heading into it. But just for the fact that Cavan have been looking at this game from so far down the track, they're going to be a dangerous opposition.
Good stuff, Michael. Thanks for coming on.